Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Unrestricted Sports. Today I am Brendan, and I'm joined with my co-host Nolan, and today we're going to be talking about Matthew Stafford. Is he overpaid? I'm going to hop right into it since I am the resident Lions fan here, and I'm going to flat out say no. I don't care what the cap hit is. I don't care about any of that. Matthew Stafford has single-handedly made the Lions at least relevant in the games they're playing in. He single-handedly is the offense besides Matt Prater. He does the most out of almost any quarterback in the league. He has faced absolutely no help from his own organization because they only care about making money, because that's how the Ford family operates. Peak efficiency, no soul. He single-handedly has made them relevant. He isn't a stat patter, okay? His stats are like that because he is the only reason they are scoring at all. But I'll leave it up to the Bears fan now to see what he says.
Okay, so personally, as I've said in previous videos, I think Matt Stafford's a pretty good quarterback. I would say top 5 in the league, arguably. But is he overpaid? I say no, but with a big but. If he wanted to succeed on the Lions, he would need to take a pay cut. If he wanted to succeed on the Lions.
No.
If he wanted to succeed on the Lions. Let me continue.
Problem.
Let me continue.
Okay.
He's worth the money. Don't get me wrong. He could easily make that money, but not on the Lions. I think the Lions are at a point as a franchise where they can't be paying somebody that much money and expect to win a Super Bowl. They got Jeff Okudah in the draft, but don't tell me that's going to improve their defense that much. He'll have some good plays here or there, but Stafford's taken up 10.7% of the Lions cap right now, which is, I believe,
which is less than Mahomes is going to. Mahomes
yes,
arguably does less.
But as of right now, Stafford is hitting the cap. It's the 13th highest in the NFL for quarterbacks, which he deserves the money.
Wow.
He deserves the money. But like I said, it's just he's not the fit for the Lions if that's the salary he wants.
You talking about how much a quarterback's getting paid is really ironic coming from a guy who took on Nick Foles' incredibly overpaid contract.
We're saving that for a later episode.
I'm going to go into why you are 100% wrong.
In what? In saying what?
In saying that if Matthew Stafford wanted to win, he would. No, that he wants to win. And he got paid because the Lions knew that he would. I don't think Stafford was planning on leaving, but they were afraid that someone might tempt him because they know, as well as everyone else who is a Lions fan, that the Ford family is only concerned with one thing, and that is how much money they are making. They don't want to win when they can put out the same crappy product every single year, and all of us fans are goaded into believing that the Lions want to win. But that's not the truth. The truth of the matter is that they gave Stafford a big contract because they knew, hey, he might leave us if we don't. They don't plan on filling any talent around him. They've had opportunities to. They've had opportunities to try. Instead, at every opportunity, they are cutting their top-end talent, mistreating their top-end talents. Calvin Johnson. What more can I say? The guy put his body on the line for the Lions. He was the reason him and Stafford were the reason they were relevant. And when he retired because of the absolute beating he took because he was the only guy on offense that Stafford could throw to in the years that he had him, guess what? They made him give back his money. They made him give back. Other teams around the league mocked us because usually that's just sort of a goodwill thing. The Lions don't have goodwill because, as I've already said, they only care about money. So they aren't going to go out of their way to sign top-end talent for Stafford anyway. Stafford's the only reason they're relevant, so they sign him. He is worth the money because at least he keeps us somewhat in games. Even if he has no one to throw to. Even if he's playing with a broken back, he was still a top 5 quarterback last year until he got fully knocked out, which everyone is kind of sus about. I think for the simple fact of the matter is that ownership wanted to trade him away, And just because of how everything turned out this offseason with coronavirus and Tom Brady being available, it kind of overshadowed the potential to get Stafford. I still think deep down that the Patriots will make a play for Stafford either this upcoming season or after next season. The Lions have been aiming to trade away Stafford for a long time, and with the symbiotic relationship that we seem to have with the Patriots, I can guarantee you, I am 90% sure that if Stafford leaves, which I am almost 100% sure he'll leave after the season guaranteed, when that happens, I have a 90% chance of him going to the Patriots.
Yeah, I don't see that happening for one. But if you look at it,
Stafford is 100% worth the money.
Yes,
100%.
yes.
He's the only reason he isn't overpaid.
That's not what's in question, though. I think the main thing that people will say that Stafford's overpaid is because he's not winning games, and that's because
he has no one to throw
exactly.
to.
That's because of the lack of talent around him.
No, 10% of the salary cap, Nolan. That's nothing. That's nothing. You know that 10% of the salary cap for a quarterback is kind of cheap nowadays. You can have a great team around a quarterback who takes up 10% of your cap.
Do you know how much you're paying Jamie Collins?
I think it's like $54 million. I thought it was something like that. We're paying $54 million for Jamie Collins. Love the guy, but we're paying $54 million for an expatriate. What happens to expatriates have to leave the Patriot system? They might have one, maybe 2 good years, and then especially when they're in a bad team, like you said, they fall apart because they don't have that structure. Jamie Collins will not be worth that contract this upcoming year, I don't think. I don't think he'll be – he helped. Don't get me wrong, he helps. He helps try to build that culture that Patricia is probably going to unsuccessfully install because the Ford leadership is giving him too little time. But the simple fact of the matter is that it's not going to work either way. He's not going to – the culture isn't going to get instilled. Patricia will be fired, and Jamie Collins' contract will have been a wasted amount of salary, and he'll ultimately end up getting cut or traded away when the next regime comes in. Stafford is the only consistent part of this team.
I agree.
Everyone else is either traded away or retired because they suck so bad.
Kenny Galladay. That's besides the point.
How long until he gets traded away because he makes Patricia mad?
He's not going to get traded. Not in my eyes. He's the next Calvin Johnson for Detroit.
He's not the next Calvin
Johnson. Nowhere near on his level, but for Detroit, that is, the next big name wide receiver in Detroit. I think the Cowboys. I think the Lions really messed up this free agency. They had a very good. They would have a very good chance. In the draft, they did okay, whatever. But they messed up big time in free agency, not getting a single notable wide receiver. I think they picked up what's his face from the Packers, Alan Lazard, I believe. No, you guys. Yeah, I think you guys picked him up.
No, I don't think that's a big impact.
Yeah, no,
player.
He's not a big impact player, but I think you look at who is available this offseason. Amari Cooper, before he got signed, that was a while ago. I don't think the Lions had a shot at him, but we didn't hear any rumors or any offers that went out. Then you got AJ Green, who was franchise tagged by the Bengals, so you can't really argue with that. But you got young guys like Brashad Perriman, Robbie Anderson, Dorsett. Dorsett doesn't have very good hands, but he's a threat.
Emmanuel Sanders was on the trading block. We didn't even make a play for him, I don't think.
No, he was a free agent after the season.
Was he?
Yeah.
We still didn't make a play for him.
Yeah, and the Saints signed him. I mean, Ted Ginn Jr., however you want to say it, he was available. No, I don't know if Lions free agency is covered very well. Can't imagine it is, because it's not like the Lions pose a huge threat in the NFL.
No, because look at how we manage our team. It's a complete... We don't know how to fill holes. We make holes. we drafted 3 tight ends last year, something which is absolutely mind-blowing. Then when we have our number 1 overall, or not our number 1 overall draft pick, but our first round draft pick in Hawkinson, we pull him in a game. In the game-winning play, we put in our 3rd-string tight end instead of the first rounder. Are you serious? What? That logic is just not there. The Lions do not manage things well, which is why Stafford isn't overpaid, because he is the glue that holds what little remains of a team there together.
I think if there's any shot for what was it Martha Ford said? She wants Matt Patricia to make the playoffs or something of that sort, right?
Yeah,
make a statement.
Make the playoffs.
Okay, I
Playoffs.
think that's possible. Is it going to be
No.
really tough for them? Yes, but I think it's possible.
It's not gonna be possible.
Think about it. If Matt Stafford returns to the form that he played in at the beginning of the season, and that defense plays marginally okay, as long as your pass rush is decent, you'll be fine.
Well,
Jeff
here's the
Okudah
problem.
will benefit from a good pass rush, and I think if you have a good pass rush, you can have a lot of success. But I think it all depends on your defense.
Last year there were openings in wild card spots. At a time, it was wondered if three teams from the NFC North could get into the playoffs. People were generally discussing that. One of us was winning the division and getting a spot, and then the other. At one point in the whole season, it didn't last for long because the Lions kind of messed up. But here's the simple fact: that opportunity is gone. The Buccaneers are going to be good this year. The Saints, despite their internal problems right now, I think the Bucs are going to take that division. The Packers, they're not going anywhere. I don't think they'll win the division this year, but they're still going to make the playoffs more than likely.
I think the NFC North is going to be a very interesting division this year, to say the least. I think the Packers are going to suffer a lot.
It'll be interesting for sure.
I think the Vikings are going to have early season struggles again, figuring out Kirk Cousins and how to throw the ball. No hate on Kirk Cousins, but that's just the way it is for him. And then it's going to be interesting to see how Aaron Rodgers adapts and continues to play, if he even plays well with,
I think
Jordan
Aaron
Love
Rodgers
sitting on
is
that
going-
bench.
Here's the thing. I think he will be doing everything in his power to make himself look good, but that might not necessarily mean winning games. That might be making his stats look good because he knows he's limited in Green Bay. Combine that with the fact that, his teammate relationship is kind of iffy at best on the best of days. So, there's that too. But as I was saying, even though Matthew Stafford is the reason the Lions are relevant, he's not going to get them into the playoffs by themselves. And since the Lions don't invest in free agency, it's not going to happen. We're not going to make the playoffs. It's not going to be close. The NFC is too good this year. Last year it was kind of a big old mess of everything going on. There was only, the teams were all too good. That is even more amplified now because now there's even more good teams in the NFC. So, I mean, I don't really know what to say. Unless there's some serious internal struggles within the Saints and Green Bay organizations, even more so than I'm expecting, the Lions aren't making the playoffs. It's just a given. It's not going to happen.
I don't know, man. The NFC West is going to be a very interesting division. It all depends on how tight, are the Saints able to keep up with the Buccaneers?
No.
Well, that's a question.
Not anymore.
And then the NFC East, that's a joke of a division. I don't care who wins that. That doesn't really matter.
NFC East is
no. If an 8-8 team from the NFC East, like the Eagles, is a playoff or not a playoff, a division winner, and gets guaranteed in and not a wild card game, that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
there were better
honestly,
teams than the Eagles that could have made the playoffs from the NFC.
I think that winning your division should win you a spot into the playoffs. It shouldn't guarantee you not playing in the wild card if you were an absolutely trash team. Sorry, Eagles fans, but you shouldn't have surpassed the wild card. That was completely bogus.
To be completely honest, I think the Rams had a better shot in the playoffs than the Eagles. And honestly, if the Bears could have won a couple more games, I think they stood a better chance than the Eagles that year, despite
because Mitchell Trubisky would have. Yeah, no.
I mean, you can't look at the NFC. You can't look at the Eagles and Cowboys.
The
and go,
Eagles. Listen,
Super Bowl threat.
I will give the Eagles this little kind of caveat here, in that they didn't have anyone to throw to, and that's not on Carson Wentz.
Come on.
The only thing that was on Carson Wentz was once again getting hurt. Obviously he thought he had a concussion. I think he did actually end up having a mild concussion. But usually you don't see someone pulling themselves out of a game, which some people commended him for, and I'm not going to get into what I personally think about that, because that's not really relevant to what we're talking about right now.
Right.
But it wasn't Wentz's fault that he had an underperforming wide receiver core and they went, 8-8 like they did.
Yeah.
Now, given that, I do think that if their wide receiver core is healthy, that the Eagles would be much more successful this upcoming year, although I don't quite like their decision to draft Jalen Hurts. That was a mistake.
Yeah, well, straying off topic a little bit, so let's get back to
Stafford.
I think
but back to Stafford. The whole point of this conversation is basically to say the Lions are not getting into the playoffs this year. So the Ford family couldn't have chosen a better time to kick out the old regime with Patricia and to cut Stafford. And that's what cut or trade Stafford. That's what they're going to do. Because Patricia, even if he did have time to instill his culture, isn't going to manage to win enough games to make the playoffs this year and be a wild card, much less win the division. Next is that once they're done with Patricia, they might finally say, you know what, let's just get a new quarterback. We'll give up on Stafford. People seem to like David Blau. I kind of liked him.
He's not your quarterback.
I liked watching him play.
He was interesting.
I thought he played very good for having very short notice. And
he's not your future.
He could be. He could be the next Drew Lock. And I think Drew Lock will be good, so that's a compliment.
We all know how I feel about Drew Lock.
Well, that's where we disagree. I think Drew Lock has a lot of potential, and I think he already showed a lot of chemistry with his teammates. People really like him, and I think that's being a good leader is number one for a quarterback. You look at what Bill Belichick cares about when he drafts a quarterback. That sort of thing got leaked, right?
Is it possible to have too many targets at wide receiver?
At wide receiver to be targeted for the wide receiver to be targeted too much?
No, is it possible for a quarterback to have too many wide receiver threats?
It's possible if the quarterback is younger and they're kind of trying to establish themselves.
Okay.
A more veteran quarterback isn't going to get pushed around by a wide receiver if they're upset about how many targets they're receiving.
Right.
You do have anomalies like what happened with Stephon Diggs and Kirk Cousins, which I thought looked really bad for Stephon Diggs. When I like Stephon Diggs, I want to clarify that, even though he's a division rival and all that. But
not anymore.
I didn't think yes, not anymore. But I do have to say that it was not a good look for him to be criticizing Kirk Cousins on the sidelines for not throwing to him as much when they were still winning the game, and against an opponent that no one expected them to beat in a stadium that is notoriously hard to play. So I didn't think that was a good look. But that's my take on it. I don't think there's enough. I don't think in most cases having too many wide receiver threats is a bad thing.
Okay.
When it does start to be a problem is in terms of cap. But really when that happens, you just make the hard decision to let the weakest link go. And that's just how it goes. And maybe you draft another really good wide receiver. That's how a lot of teams do it. Just pick and replace.
I think Matt Stafford's worth the money. Needs to leave Detroit.
Yes.
All right.
Stafford has wasted a lot of his career in Detroit, and that won't change. And his career will be wasted if he plays listen, from a fan perspective, I would love for Stafford to retire a Lion. But me liking Stafford the person and seeing that he really is a good guy, I want him to have a chance to win a Super Bowl, because if he was with another team, that would be a real reality. And that's just simply not what he's been exposed to in Detroit. Because Detroit was never aiming for a rebuild. They were just aiming for making more money. So that's pretty much all I have to say on this matter. We've gotten a little bit off topic anyway, but it was all kind of contributing to the conversation. So, unless you have anything else to say, Nolan.
One last quick thing. I think a perfect offseason for the Detroit Lions would have been, with the signing of Jamie Collins, just pick up some corner to replace Darius Slay. Doesn't have to be good. Doesn't have to contribute at all. Detroit Lions, like we said, aren't doing anything. I think it would have been a fantastic move if the Lions had traded down or kept their pick and just got Tua. Final thoughts.
No. Tua didn't want to come to Detroit.
He didn't want to because Stafford was there.
Him and his whole family said that if that occurred, if Tua was drafted to that organization, that he would sit out or that he wouldn't sign. It was very obvious he didn't want to play here. That's never a good way to start it off. When a person shows that level of not wanting to play for your team, you don't want to try to force it. It's not going to work. If they don't want to play for you, it's only going to hinder your team. And the Ford family, in terms of fan bases, a lot of the Lions fans, myself included, didn't like that. I understand where he's coming from, but I didn't like it. It's because it made me feel even more bad about my team. So a lot of Lions fans didn't like that to begin with, because he was basically saying, your team's trash and dysfunctional. I don't want to be here. So that wouldn't have worked out.
Mm.
All right. Well, that's it for this episode, guys. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to Unrestricted Sports, and follow us at our social medias in the description down below. Make sure you leave some comments, and we will see you guys next time. See you.